Spring crickets. What do you think, folks? Who's out there doing something and who's not? Who's thinking they're doing something and who's not? And what we have here in the last week and a half I've been working on is who thinks that someone else is doing something, and they're not going to be able to do any of that. And yesterday I was doing a seminar at a gold show talking about certain things that miners get involved with that they shouldn't, and why that is. And the common theme that I've had over years, absolute years, is don't take anybody's opinion for anything. Don't take anybody's suggestions until you found the law, read it yourself, understand what you read correctly, and then start to believe that now maybe then you have enough to be able to make a determination, let alone being able to make a determination for someone else, let alone be able to teach it. So I've been doing this for 10 years, solely on mining law. It's not the 20 years I spent before getting to a certain point that I thought I could figure things out. And I've been going on for quite a long time, making sure I had the tools I needed to correctly interpret things and anticipate things was really I found the major thing. You got to know enough to be able to anticipate a potential problem. You got to see a trespass when it's coming at you. And that takes a little bit of work, especially with all the indoctrination that we've been had by all sorts of colors of authority. And I was certainly susceptible to believing that those that looked like they had authority were the ones you could trust. And as you know, over the last few years behind Woodshed, we found out that trust was misplaced, and it was abused by those that were fostering that in us so that they could abuse us and take advantage. And at that point also I realized that, we're a dupable people. And so that kind of takes away a lot of the energy I have. I don't have any animosity toward lots of people. There's a couple of people that I do, not an animosity, I'll call them out for criminals that they will be. Once I find out that they've been told what the law is and they want to break it. That's where it draws the major line. Before that, I will accept anybody's mistake as an honest mistake. And it's easy to do. You can even think that everything's fine and everything looked like it. Even I've done some study and just didn't quite have the right piece. I didn't have the very first step, and I got off the wrong side of a position, and I had to rethink. Eventually, it stopped. What I thought I knew just didn't quite make it, and I learned a long time ago not to try and fit that square peg in the round hole. When something comes up a little wrong, you need to step back and say, okay, where did it go wrong? Why? Did I make that mistake? Did I now learn something new that I'm trying to force into a condition or not? And am I correct? So I've gone through at least focused on the mining law as property law. And that's a real simple thing. The easiest way I can explain it to you. I did it yesterday at the seminar talking about how you have a property and then you don't understand what that property is and what it does. And you don't understand that the government agencies have obligations and duties, and they can only go so much, and they're not supposed to go where they've been going. And that's been our problem as property owners generally, and in particular miners. And the word miner is a odd word anymore. It includes anybody that pulls minerals out of the ground. And that could include all kinds of minerals, those that are granted and those that haven't been yet. And those that have been as in the commons, the disposal was reneged and breached, and we have a long way to go before we ever get there. But that little act causes a ton of people a lot of trouble. And I always ask people, just read the law, get the black and white, and then we'll talk. Don't tell me what at the point that we're actually sitting down to talk about certain things, I don't need to hear opinions anymore. Our opinions don't need to exist. Where we're talking about the law of the land. The law of the land is the law of the land. And that's what it is, and that's what it's going to be, and there's no beyond that. What came up and from that is an interesting history, which I will not go on about, but which leads us until today. And you've heard I talked about the Jefferson Mining District. And, we've been doing this study. I've been doing this for the 10 years in mining law, and then we've been doing started focusing on mining districts myself when I started doing some research. Probably about 5 years ago. These are all loose times, so don't worry about how tight I am exact. It doesn't matter. And through my studies, and then I was telling people, we don't need to look at this and look at what mining districts are and do in real, and really bore down on them, because about 1932 or so, the majority of the districts were had fallen into disuse. And that was an interesting insight for me to find out after a while. I convinced myself by what was said over and over and over that the miners just stopped using them. And part of the reason, and the main reason, was by that time the states had taken on, whether rightly or wrongly, they had taken on the bulk of what a mining district was to do and what its regulation was over. The regulation was never over the work. It was always over and created back in prior to 1866, when they were finally adopted by Congress, to laws were to make peace amongst the people, and to make the delineation for trespassing. And so this is where we get the sheriff having the duty to keep the peace. That's how that runs out in the West. In some of the counties that were actually started as mining districts, that just changed from mining districts to counties, what we have as counties. The sheriff position in the mining district, which they had, was the same essential capacity as you see today, keeping the peace. So it's an easy transition we get over. But so in looking at mining districts and finding out that they are miners' governments, they're governments made by people who owned land, who created those districts to protect themselves and to keep the peace and to keep identify trespass, had a special place that was adopted by Congress. And there's no other thing that you can do than to do the district the way they were done by the miners themselves. And those districts are not the end-all be-all of the miners, the grantees who made them, who comprised them, the assembly, as we call. As you hear me say, I'm an assemblyman. I'm just an assembly of grantees in a district. It's not, you get the same word like down in California. You got assemblymen for these counties or these cities. This is where the miners did this a long time ago on their own. They didn't do this with government guidance. They didn't do this with government funding. They didn't do this with any statutory right. In fact, they were outlaws. Think about that. These are people who still were looking for peace. Miners are long-term, ancient type people. They're actually a special class. We don't appreciate that. I started to appreciate what a miner was after I started reading about this. So miners have made their own governments for a long time, and they reflect themselves in mining districts that fell into disuse because the states took on most of the obligation to regulate miners in doing something that the mining districts did, which was to track and allow regulation to create the muniment of title, the document of title. And within which the district, the grantees would make their regulations to make sure that if there was any problems, they would would attend to their own, I guess it is. And they were very small, typically. Well, the need for a mining district fell into disuse, and then we come way off into 2000. And and we're looking around, and the miners are now out of the forest, out of the mines, and they're fighting against the agencies, which makes no sense at all. And then, we find out there's an underlying agenda. There's this underlying condition that doesn't want people to use the earth. It's a religion. It's a theology. It's an ideology. It reflects itself today in lots of names and lots of ways. And it proceeds upon a method that is pretty formidable when you don't understand you're up against it. It mimics lawful action. And a lot of people kind of snuggle up to it because it's a surrogate peace. It's a surrogate process of a system. It's a surrogate kumbaya. We call it the kumbaya system. Get around the campfire and sing songs. But it's really just to cause you to drop your guard. And so this is something that I've been keen to for a long time, a lot longer than the mining law. That something came up here in the last week and a half, and I've had to divert quite a bit of energy, and I was surprised and glad, just absolutely happy to hear it. When we got back together in the Jefferson Mining District meeting that we had Friday, that when this problem, it ends up being a problem, stepping up, to offer itself up for miners and people, property owners and things, and public land users and highway users to join up with it, unify under one voice. there was enough there to just seeing that construction was enough to cause me to look at it. But I dismissed it. Had I stayed on my idea to dismiss it because it really isn't anything when you look at it, it doesn't affect the district, it doesn't affect miners, it's something inert, it's nothing there for a miner, for a property owner, for a water appropriator, there's really nothing in what they're talking about. It's actually the opposite side of what we do in the district already to protect miners, that was the problem, that it could harm miners if they thought that it was right. And that's the problem that happened with me. And 12 hours after I looked at it and said, well, this is nothing for us, it actually caught fire. It actually got a lot of steam behind it. And within a few days, it started going nationwide interest. And I was called back in and said, hey, do you know what this is going on? And I said, no. And I said, well, and I looked at this interest that happened. I said, people don't know what they're looking at. And we have to look and research what this is, because this is very dangerous. And I was real happy to hear when we got to the miners meeting that we had quite a few assemblymen, all people there at the mining district, that had seen this problem, and we're now, and this is the part that made me a lot, I felt very happy about what we are doing as people for ourselves. I tell you to read the black and white. I said, get to that law and read it for yourself and think about it and work with it. And we have a bunch of people now that just took that on. And we all came back to that meeting here, this assembly, with our information. And we deliberated on this problem. And it's the problem of some people who have taken it on themselves to promote themselves as some national association or coming from a regional area that's going to help all the miners and unify under one voice. And that sounds really good. You want to be unified and you want to have one voice that you think is strong. The problem with all that is that's exactly what you don't want to do in these theologically oriented, ideologically oriented administrative days, where the agencies are pushing a religion essentially, and this agenda. It's international. This agenda. I talk about it all the time. It's not hard to identify, and they have a method, and that method is being used by this group, and this group is called the Minerals and Mining Advisory Council. And they promote to be able to be that unifying force that offers one voice to the government. You presume it's going to be to forcefully state something and have force and effect. And in fact, they don't state to you how they have the authority to do so. In fact, their website, and when this is all we had was in a website that we all went to join up, have all the mining districts sign up underneath this, which they can't do actually. And even if they did, they can't speak for all the grantees' interest inside those districts, and then they can't speak to the district, the non-district grantees that are outside the district and still coexistent with the geographic jurisdiction. To know, that's what the first thing that caught me is I knew that this is an impossibility to happen. That we were looking at a very big danger, and I'm talking to you about this, even those that aren't miners and stuff, because this is how they have come at us in lots of ways, in lots of subject matter areas, and it does affect all of us. But you need to hear how they do it. That we met in the Jefferson Mining District this Friday to bring our information, our research together to find out whether or not we could, because it was an offer to join, we felt almost the requirement, the necessity to analyze it and accept or reject this offer, to join up with under one voice. Well, they didn't give us any authorities, and I told you, challenge every authority always. Find out the source of the authority. Don't listen to someone saying that they think they know what's going on or that they do know what's going on to convince you that they do, without doing some kind of an authoritative, substantially authoritative support. Now, mining districts, miners, traditions, and customs are not government. And so when you see this agency, this advisory council being created, and any advisory council is the point, any group purporting to be a unifying voice, anymore today anyway, in these last 3 decades, these are a very particular type of group, and typically they're not the group you want to be involved with. They have no sense of what the law really is, and they'll claim that they do. That we pulled together. There was no authority for what they were doing is a threat to the extent for us that we know they're going to hurt people. They can't hurt Jefferson Mining District. In fact, we violate the district that we have, the Jefferson Mining District that we have established, violates one of their rules to show you that this is not consistent with law to begin with. They didn't come and ask the districts at all. They just formed this thing up as an advisory council. So there was no authority. And I say, okay, where's the authority? I don't know anything about this. You know, there's things in law I haven't read. I don't know. But where's your authority to be this overarching umbrella of protection that you bring everybody's voice into one voice? You know in administrative law, one voice is useless. Unless it's the right voice, and then you hope that's the only voice you got is that one that's on point, and you hope that's on point. So this was a violation to begin with, in every sense on the administrative side, for something we do in the district called coordination. And that coordination is mandated by law, and it allows governments to work with the federal agencies as they bring their land use plans. Think about this, folks. Your land use plans is in every county in the states have their land use policies. This is all the same stuff. It affects you right where you live. But for us, it's the mining law. That you're supposed to bring these major federal action plans together so they're consistent with local needs and laws and ordinances for land use, so that it doesn't, these federal plans don't overpress the locals, the countryside. And so, not having any information, but knowing I have to find out, well, what's this authority they're using to do this thing that they claim they can do? I ran into this thing called the Federal Advisory Committee Act, which I would say this is a requirement to find out about. Federal Advisory Committee Act. It comes out of the Administrative Procedures Act. So now you know you're administrative federal. There's nothing in this it's in the mining law. There's nothing that the mining law is going to be protected by. The mining law is its own protection. And there's no organization that can come up that can do better than you, just knowing your property rights by knowing the law and asserting those right where you are, protecting your own property in the state that it's in by the state property laws. That a federal organization like this is a non-starter just on that concept alone. That when you read the Federal Advisory Committee Act, you find out that all advisory councils are federal advisors to the agency that they sign up with. And those councils are set up, when you read the act, to have a 1/15th voice. They're only 1/15th of all the elements that have to comprise the committee that advises the secretary. And it's only an advice. The secretary will and can agree or disagree, accept or not accept. There's no mandate to make sure that it actually gets in what you're going to do. And your voice is diminished by 15 other voices giving their advice, which is at the discretion and the pleasure of the secretary. Now, when I read that, I knew exactly what our problem was, and I knew exactly what they're doing. Advisory councils to the secretary is in an advisory condition to an administrative agency. Well, what's that? That's cooperating agencies under coordination. That's what we don't do. That's what you don't want to do. And so this developed into a very big problem when people who just want the pressure off, they just want to go to work, miners and property with the water users, they just want to use their water and do productive things like they were supposed to be doing because Congress said so. When the states acceded to that, when they ceded the land free of title in the emissions or enabling acts of their state, that these lands are put out to be productive, not non-use like it's been forced down our throat, that these advisory councils can do no more than diminish your voice and diminish your power, that we realized, and I certainly saw it when it became a brush fire across this country, that everyone was thinking was a great idea. We better look at this very carefully, and we better create some kind of a statement, which we did. And I'll read it off. I want you to hear it. It's fairly dense. It is to the law that we found. It's to the representations made. It makes very specific conversation on very particular things that may or may not be familiar to you. But if you can just listen to the subject matter areas of how it worked, how it doesn't work, what it affects, how it affects it, why we can't we have to step up on our own rights, and we can't use a surrogate. This is all just a representation, and certainly only an advisory way that the Jefferson Mining District took on as a matter for making an order in assembly. the matter of an offer represented as legally authentic to apply to a Minerals and Mining Advisory Council, MMAC, to represent mining districts before and as a United States government, legal federal agents, and federal stakeholders, possibly USDMM financed by the United States government, to whom this may concern. Greetings. The offer, having come to the attention of the Jefferson Mining District assembled without prior knowledge, involvement, or contribution, that mining districts apply to unify but beneath the one voice of a Minerals and Mining Advisory Council, MMAC, a self-styled so-called regional, potentially nationwide advisory council of or speaking for all mining districts as well as of well-meaning though ill-advised intent, is hereby completely rejected. The offer, as a matter of law, is absurd on its face. Any genuine mining district worth its ore will reject such an offer without hesitation, for the insurrection the fraudulent offer, exhibiting ignorance of the subject matter areas, is to lawfully constituted miners' government such as Jefferson Mining District. After due diligence of available information and representations made of MMAC, despite its apparent allusion to all mining districts having been consulted and are in any agreement, or as to its existence, which charter for the purpose is not in evidence, without which to act is a crime, or at least void, or as to the purported and ludicrous authority not limited to speak for all mineral estate interests or mining districts, we of the Assembly find the offer an insult inimical to the fulfillment of congressional purpose and objectives, to its grantees, and to genuine mining districts or other appropriators similarly situated. Based upon the representations made through electronic media, and though undisclosed, yet pursuant to the federal law apparently applicable to federal agency status claims, such as the Federal Advisory Committee Act, 5 U.S.C. Appendix 1972, the best that can be expected to occur through affiliation with this advisory council will be the desilencing of the power of each grantee in favor of and under the diminished one voice of the MMAC in destructive collaboration, further under and at the discretion and pleasure of the Secretary of the Interior or other bureaucracy. Mineral estate grantees are not stakeholders, but are adversely affected by stakeholders and other government partners or special interest collaborators. Given that the government's agencies, or agencies in particular, have shown they cannot be trusted to protect disposals as obligated, the only, quote, other benefits of enhanced cooperating agency participation include fostering intra and intergovernmental trust, e.g. partnerships at community level, close quote, the offer provides no foundation or value which current coordinating government-to-government checks, but which, being an unqualifiable status, any advisory council cannot do. Consequent to Jefferson Mining District et al. Versus Kitzhaber et al. 2013, any purported legal representation promoted by MMAC, if it were authorized, is criminally inadequate where utilizing the Bar Association, judicial system, or members, and a breach of the judgment thereto. Even so, quote, simple, easy, close quote, no other agencies. Jefferson Mining District, a government acknowledged by Congress, by and for miners, by and through the efforts of its assembly, is directly coordinating land use plans under no other body, assuring applicable agency actions are consistent with law, local needs, and values. This direct engagement avoids the capitulation and compromise MMAC offers to found administrative tyranny under color of lawful authority or by way of collective, alternative dispute resolution-based activity and strategies and the harms and divisions wrought thereby. The Assembly finds, given notice hereby, that such ADR-based activity or strategies affecting grantees or other appropriators are felony under state law, theft by extortion under color of authority. The Assembly finds a MMAC USDMM usurpation is a clear and present danger to all grantees. This MMAC offer is an elaborate and deceptive ruse to disempower mineral estate grantees through false inducement to accept the one voice of mere federal stakeholder advisor at the discretion of an executive agency implementing its outcomes, or by future interference of a foreign federal agency. Rather than grantees accepting the harmful bureaucratic administrative obfuscation the MMAC offers, the Assembly advocates participation with Jefferson Mining District to assert direct protection or to prepare remedy against the sort of government agency encroachment evidenced in this insidious offer. Those outside of the geographic jurisdiction of Jefferson Mining District are encouraged to create not facade administrative, but legitimate mining districts to protect in the minimum that, quote, all valuable mineral deposits in lands belonging to the United States, both surveyed and unsurveyed, shall be free and open to exploration and purchase, and the lands in which they are found to occupation and purchase, that's 30 U.S.C. 22, and to guard each grantee who, quote, shall have the exclusive right of possession and enjoyment of all surface included within the lines of their locations, that's citing 30 U.S.C. 26, including water, unfettered, neither trespassed nor infringed by multi-use, multi-party and place-based groups utilizing ADR strategies such as Kumbaya, quote, consensus building, collaborative problem solving, interest-based negotiating, mediating or facilitating, and joint fact-finding to seek common ground and to identify or elicit shared goals, close quote, which under one voice predicts will be outcome-based, consistent with the objectives of agency political or ideological agenda as law applicable to any council requires must be given, quote, cooperating, collaborating, partnershiping, or teams are subject to the agency final decision. The cooperating contributor is not much more than advisory, parenthetically commensurate with available time and knowledge, close quote. The Congressional Mineral Estate Grant, pursuant to applicable mining law, does not provide power or authority to such administrative servitude or encumbrance by non-grantees or to advisory councils such as proposed. To impose so, even by colorable inference, is felony, as well fiduciary trust breach. The Assembly reserves any further comment pending future remedy required to protect against the sort of harms MMAC as collaborator in federal agency collusion can cause. Part of the method enjoined, whether intentionally, by covert plan, or out of ignorance, will be no excuse or immunity. Duly read, deliberated, and decided of Assembly in unanimous consent, ordered to effect its purpose. It will be witnessed by the chairman and recorded by our district recorder for the purpose of record and public notice. This order, will be eventually posted as a PDF form to jeffersonminingdistrict.com, and it is, I don't know how much more substantial in law it can be to show that we miners, tradition and custom prevailing, could not engage in the administrative side of what Jefferson Mining District does in coordination. The details of all this, there's just tons to talk about that I don't know that I want to spend for most of y'all that aren't interested in a lot of this, but I want you to listen. I wanted you to at least have on record what Jefferson Mining District did to address a problem that the lawsuit that I referenced, it went and it sued to enjoin the very actions that are being promoted by this advisory council, so-called. Now, in a little deeper analysis, and because we're dealing with what I identify as an amoeba. It's a creature that will, if you put up an obstacle, one obstacle, it'll just kind of go right around the obstacle. It's really slick about getting around it, that if you talk too much about how you do stuff, it'll go around and prepare for going around anything that you do. And so what you're doing is you're actually hurting yourself to explain how you know how to see these people. I can just tell you just one thing I can say, because it's on their website. They do admit to partnershiping. One of the things that we can't do, that people can't do if they have property and expect to protect it. The partnershiping alone brings you into the status of subjection. That if you go to the website, you'll see, and they may pull this down, I don't know, you'll see the partnerships are already, this organization isn't really fully started yet they already have a partnership between the BLM which is the agency which this organization will be subject to at the pleasure and discretion of the agency, and some other entity that's at the very bottom of the list. And in the middle, there's no spaces. There's some space. So I guess they've put that entity at the bottom. Well, that entity happens to be what we can identify really quickly as they promote the Green Terrorist Group. They're Gang Green. That's all I can tell you. These people really promote the UN agenda. They are based back east in Washington. One of the names of which on the website is Pamela Anderson. I thought it was a joke myself. I thought it was just it was a fill site, just a bunch of filled information. Well, it happens to be that there's a legitimate Pamela Anderson who happens to be the attorney for the lobbyist attorneys back there that lobby for the Emerald Planet. Emerald Planet is advancing this whole thing. I don't know of any miners that understands about the Federal Advisory Committee sufficient to know that their website has information in it that exposes that they've set this up already for the miners to step in and accept to fulfill the demands and requirements of FACA. Except they don't have a charter quite yet. It'll take a couple of years to get that, I understand. That brings them into federal agency status, because I couldn't understand how an association could do that. But there is a provision. See, we don't deal on that side, so I was totally ignorant of it. But I'm not now, and a couple of other minor grantees, assemblymen, and miners did some research and corroborated what I found. So we were all pretty much on the same point that there's just no way to touch this that is not an extension. This Emerald Planet looks like some next generation from what they used to call green gold. And they tried to bring artisanal mining in, and what they tried to do is give you some advantage that you would embrace and agree to while they were essentially controlling what you were doing. And in green gold, they would offer to have you become a member, and they would certify you to be green. In an artisanal mining sense. You can't do artisanal mining in the United States of America because we have property rights. Artisanal mining is skill-based, not property-based. And so they would say that we would give you a seal of approval that you are green gold, you're environmentally compliant, and what we'll do is set up a whole bunch of jewelers and things that will buy your gold, and we'll sell it as a premium price. So you'll get premium price for your gold. And they tried to sell this, and I guess some people took on, but eventually it died. People realized it was just a scam. Well, this looks to me like no different, except they don't have this network set up, or they don't intend to. They intend to be able to get your compliance and agreement so that they are the one voice. They will look like a miner in the 1/15th voice elements. In fact, they will be promoting, and they exist part of their existence will be to be empowered to enforce regulations under 3809, which is not even applicable to grantees, and most grantees don't know that. This, again, ignorance is allowing us to be defeated. But this international group is trying to secret its way, giving you the benefit of one voice and unity. Kumbaya. In order to gain of ultimate control, as you don't take on your own responsibility to protect your claim in the first place and or hand it over to somebody else to represent you. 2 failures right there. It's what we've been doing wrong for a long time. And I'm talking longer than me knowing the mining law. I've watched this problem for quite a few decades after I started putting my I get the rose-colored glasses slapped for my face. It took about 5 years to get oriented. Once I got oriented, I could see a lot of these failures in us. Why I tell you, don't blame others. Fix yourself first. This is what the Jefferson Mining District has ordered. It's going to go on their website. My contribution was consistent with a bunch of other miners who jumped in and saw the danger of this, and I can tell you that now it's going to be changing as the amoeba changes. So does this condition. Our interim chairman was invited to a conference on Wednesday, I think it was, and he contributed that information, and he was explaining to them that they don't really understand what they're doing. They don't understand the law. They don't understand that they're not going to get what they're going to get. They just don't know, and that they had to be very careful about proceeding. Well, upon that information, we understand that they're now, the very first thing that I understand, they were going to change their name. Whether or not all this happens, I don't know. It's irrelevant. The point is, that's the amoeba. It's going to change its looks. It's like all these terms. You heard me read all the terms that they talk about. collaborating, partnershiping in teams. Then you go into how they do you, how they take you out, consensus building, collaborating, problem solving, interest-based negotiating, mediating or facilitating. What do you need in all that for your mining claims? What you're doing when your mining claims is self-executing and self-operative. Why do you need all this nonsense? But in fact, it's ADR. It's an alternative dispute resolution that I have identified is a felony in progress. All these public meetings, the way they handle them and they handle them not as coordinating, they handle them irresponsibly and in violation of NEPA. They set you up to make these comments on the cooperating side, and they use facilitation and this collaborative problem solving, which is a diminishment and a third party interest trying to take claim to your title. The ADR is a felony to start with, and that it comes under a ton of names, and all these names that they brought up: consensus building, collaborative problem solving, interest-based negotiating, mediating, and a joint fact-finding, common ground. All that's the names they used to use, because when we found them out, not we, but when they're found out, they have to change their spots. It's the same leopard, they're going to change their spots, and they hope you don't see them. And this is what they do. They'll change their name. So that was one indication. They're also going to, now they've adjusted, if I understand. There was a second conference call since we've been giving them some information, apparently through our interim chairman, to try and, say, hey, listen, don't waste your time on this way. We want miners to step up and become their own power, first of all at their claim level, and then if they need to, and it might be advisable to join up as actual mining districts. And the Jefferson Mining District is fully able to guide whoever wants to. In fact, we were the inspiration to show you how this works and how well it can work, directly applicable where you all are. That we had a mining district down, I think, in Tombstone, Arizona, that took from our inspiration to do so, made their own mining district. The Forest Service down there shut the water off to the town. Now, this is a long while back, and I hadn't heard about this, but I just got told here the other day that the information that we were able to give to that district, those miners were able to jump back into their town, and however they did it, I don't have all that information. They did get involved. They did say the proper things they need to say. They did tell the Forest Service what had to happen, and the ultimate end was when they took responsibility for their own. Not through some one voice, but actually directly took responsibility and applied the black and white, applied the law the way it was supposed to be. They got their water started running again. In fact, they got the Forest Service to go back in and help them. So we have direct contact with direct action that causes the things to go back to where it was supposed to, so people stop getting hurt underneath this governmental oppression that I keep telling you about. You can handle. That we don't, any advisory council or committee is really, it's another bureaucracy they deny that they say exists. That we need to and anybody saying that we should give anybody like this a chance, it's like, this is no different than giving you're the banker, and you're gonna give some bank robber the chance not to steal from you. Anybody who advocates these kinds of groups hasn't read the law, and they really don't have enough knowledge to know they shouldn't be talking and making advice. Everybody needs to stop putting out so much advice. They need to go read the law, and they need to see what it says. And don't make it up. And whatever they see that's different than what they thought, they're going to have to adjust their thoughts. And I'm saying this with a little bit of authority, I think. I've been doing this directly in mining law for 10 years. And I don't think I've been lying to myself. And I think if I was, we'd have been found out a long time ago, and that's not happening. When we stay on the point, answer the right things, put the agencies directly into liability for not doing so, things start to change. It's not immediate, but things start to change directly. You don't lose your voice through an advisory agency that wants to beat you down anyway. This is where we've been failing, and we've been failing more and on point of the fact we don't take the responsibility to learn the law for our own property. I see this over and over and over. Was at the seminar talking about the NEPA. Why? Because all the miners that get into this, they eventually get a letter from the Forest Service or the BLM for a plan of operations or a notice of intent. And this has been going on for years. I've explained all of this. It's not applicable. But still, and again, and then because of this MMAC coming up through that avenue, I decided at the seminar I'll explain why an NOI and a POO is not valid. It's not valid for what we do, period. And anybody can do this. You can just read what the NEPA says. You don't balance in favor of the natural environment. You have to balance in favor of man's environment. Guess what? All the producers are man's environment. Why the heck are we getting beat up so bad by the agencies? It's because we're letting them. If we go to some advisory council of any name, if we go to some stakeholder of any name, we're handing our bank to the thief. And anybody that says gives a thief a chance, I don't know, they've got a bigger heart than I do. And I try to give quite a bit of leeway to people, generally. I really do like to go, let's make sure everyone's innocent. But this is so off the wall, actually, off the hook. I didn't think it was going to go anywhere. When it went somewhere, I was really shocked some more, and it just shows how generally ignorant we are. I'm not saying you're stupid. Please understand. Let's get some definiteness. Quit being bruised here. We are dupable and stupid people, and it's up to us to not be that. And I tell you, the Protocols of the Elders of Zion is a great manual to explain where some subject matter areas of where we are weak. And these people know how to, these like an Emerald Planet type people, these attorneys, they know how to exploit all of that. The system knows how to beat you down, and you don't even know how the first thing to start with. And the point of it is that if you have even a question, I found this after the seminar talking to people, even the question about not getting a permit means you don't know enough. Because when you know that those, like NEPA is not applicable to you, and you know why. You know that the NOI is only applicable to NEPA. So if someone's asking you for it, you're deeming yourself, and they're deeming you to be a major federal project. And you're in the middle of a process that missed 8 steps before you got there when you apply your notice of intent. And no one asked why a plan of operations is not defined in the NEPA definitions. That I even can make one before I get the environmental assessment. No one asks these things. Why? Because no one reads and sees what the requirements are. And for those of you that want to, I can't remember fully the name, but there's a citizen's guidebook on NEPA, and it gives you a lot of this information. I'm not so smart, folks. I just happen to have a gift. It's called DuckDuckGo and a great internet. And then I have an inquiry in me, and I just search it out. I don't make an excuse. I'm asking you to do that for yourself. There is no question in my mind. There was no question in the mind of the miners that showed up at the district to work this thing through. And really, I want to encourage one more thing, more and more. We said it in the document in the order. I want you to know Jefferson Mining District exists, and we do it, and we have a purpose, and we've been doing that purpose for 3 years, I think, roughly. That we've been doing ahead of MMAC what that council can never do. We've already been doing it. That I want the miners to understand they can do it too, whether they're in the district, as we say in the order. Come call us. We can help you right where you are to go after those that stop you. Whether it's stopping you in your roads, whether it's going to the county, you can help the county to assert its protections. And if you're not, so we already have that located within our boundaries. Outside of our boundaries, if you're out there and maybe don't want to do your own thing, start your own real mining district. Make sure you don't get on the cooperating side, the collaborating side, the facilitated side. Stay on the coordinating side. We can help with that. We've been doing that. We've actually streamlined the process. Why? We can do that because the agencies are that corrupt. In fact, I just wrote, last week was a big writing. I was a writing fool last week, just to put it in context here, of these coordinated responses against a plan. In the Carson's, it was all late breaking emergency type stuff that came up to us, so we aren't everywhere. We can only get the information when we can, and the Carson City plan came up, and I looked at their notice, and in 2 seconds I found where they had failed to do the whole process. Their notice wasn't even good enough. Why? Because they only mentioned they were taking input on the collaborative side. They never took it on the coordinating side. NEPA requires, FLPMA requires the coordination by the standards of NEPA. If you don't understand what I just said, you don't know enough to agree with MMAC anyway. And this is our problem. I want you to know that there's a knowledge that you can gain. I guess this is I'm starting to get a little frustrated when I know I've been doing this for 10 years. I've been saying all the same things, and we're still getting do you know what an army of 50,000 people that would be tying into this absurdity called MMAC? Do you know what an army who was properly focused could do? That I'm watching not do anything, do the wrong thing, be the crickets in the ultimate effect? It's really frustrating. And all the answer is to read the black and white. And then get up with people that you trust or think you can trust. And I say, don't even trust me. I'll trust you. Trust me enough to get you to where you need to study. Like, go to the FACA and you read it. When you read it, we can come back and talk later. But I don't think we'll be talking much. I think you'll be explaining to me what I already told you. It's laid out. In fact, one of the main, well, I won't even say anymore, because if I say more now, the amoeba will change, and pretty soon in the next few months, they'll adjust all this thing, and people will say, oh, this is the next best thing since sliced white bread. What was the thing right before white sliced bread? Maybe ice block refrigerators, I guess. I don't know. The point is that we're just looking for the next best thing, but the problem is we're divorcing our own authority when we do that, and we can't. As a property owner, every property owner they tell us in the mine law, every case is a case-by-case basis. So is your defense of your property and your assertion of your property rights. You can't give it over. When you join a mining district, you're not giving over your property rights. You're just joining up, assembling all the same statuses together and empowering yourself directly. And we have found through our studies and our work and the continuing work that we do, that this position of coordination on the coordination side and constrained to the coordination, because as soon as you fall off the coordination track, you lose it. It's over. That we are able to assert all of our rights right up front. That people, the miner, public land users would just look what we're saying, look what we're doing, look what we've done. To me, I don't see how this thing lasts much longer than 6 months to a year. Actually, if it was really organized up the way it's supposed to, and not handing your rights to an attorney who could care less, who makes his money on the word, who we sued to enjoin because they're the parties who have started and employed and fund through their legislative capacity all these things that destroy us. We need to know our own stuff. The Jefferson Mining District exists. It does its governmental things. Whether or not the agencies want to pay attention, we are holding them in control at this point. We can't do this forever. Those of us that know this and we're gone, it's over. The next guy that doesn't step up is the agencies will be there until we can find a better answer. We're not going to find a better answer putting our one voice, our 1/15th voice, into an advisory capacity at the pleasure of a secretarial agency that wants to beat you up. It's just not going to happen. Another thing that came up, as this thing starts to change, now I understand. And again, it's neither here nor there to me. Whatever they end up doing is fine. What we saw was that the way they're moving, they're going to hurt people, and people aren't going to know that. They're not going to know they're being hurt by accepting. That's where we don't like it, I think. That there's a slick little way to hurt people. It's how we've been being done all this time and didn't know it. That now I hear that they're going to change. Oh, well, this is going to be some kind of dispute resolution condition for minor-to-minor problems. Well, let me just suggest something. If miners are still having trouble against themselves, the state law covers that. They're saying, well, we're going to have a dispute resolution so that we avoid courts. If the miners are fighting amongst themselves right now and not turning at the real enemy, then the miners themselves are a problem. If they need to have a alternative dispute agency step up to help them. What did I just say? Alternative disputes, the way they happen today, those are felonies. Someone stepping up and saying they know more than you know about your property rights, and they're going to be able to tell you about that if an issue comes up between the two of you. How about if you two of the miners get along and don't need that, and focus your attention on the real enemy, please. Yeah, it's going to take a little bit to really understand, but it's not that much. You got to, again, when I was just so thrilled to see how many miners stepped up on their own without even, just stepped up and said, oh, I got to check into this. That when we came together, we had all kinds of information to pull from. That's what we need to do. And I talk about mining grantees. Miners are kind of, I don't know if I clarified that. Miners is a funny word. Miners means all miners. We're not talking about all miners. That's why I've conformed our discussions to grantees. And if you go type in the miner in a search engine, you'll find MSHA pops up. Well, MSHA is not what we do. MSHA is not even applicable to what we do. To the great horror of people who think that it is, it's not. That happens to do with a very special mineral industry. And so you find out that miner is used by the agencies as well, and they can't use grantee, and that's why I shifted the terminology. Why? Because the words are very important for us to understand, to keep focused on where we are. And if you aren't focused, if you keep using, oh, these are federal mining claims, you don't know what you're talking about. I don't have a judgment on that. Just fix your word. Go understand what it really is and call it by that. But you're not, because this leads into, you call it a federal mining claim, you're walking yourself into agreeing that the other thing that's being promoted by this group is HR 761, I think. The law that I went to go read is not something that's not something we want, but it's being promoted. It will create a United States government mine. And you will see about every paragraph of that act states NEPA is involved, telling you this is a government project that you, as an independent miner, are not going to be a part of. In fact, I will direct you to the Murkowski problem that I talked about behind Woodshed when it happened years ago up in Alaska. That rare earth deposit that's real rich, they handed it over to a home office of a Canadian corporation owned by the Queen. You didn't get none of that. This is your own government doing this. So we have to start paying attention to the deception that's around us, and the only way we're going to do that is to know our law better. And at the seminar, I had people after the seminar complaining to me about how other miners don't really understand. They're seeing it now, and they don't understand it. We're not active in the right way. We're active in all the wrong ways. I'm advocating that we start to learn what the better way is, at least. I don't know how about right, but the better way, if anything, and start working that direction. Stop putting our attention and energies into associations, 501(c)(3) organizations that claim they know the mining law, and they're the bee's knees about it, because they're not. They're not, and they can be found out so many ways. It's really frightening that people, and I'm just astounded. I don't even know where to place this. Why everybody runs to these other groups and things that are not the thing to do, instead of just buckling down and do what you have to do. I really don't know. I'm just befuddled. When I look at what we do, folks, not what we talk about, what we do is becoming so effective that, in fact, I think that's what MMAC was started up for. The miners don't know this because they don't understand what the originations of this is. The reason why they went to state-sized mining districts is because of the example that Jefferson makes. And why we violated one of their rules already before they got started. They have a limit. We don't. And that's how you find them, folks. I mean, this is all set up a lot deeper. As I told the seminar creator, we got a lot of deep baggage on a lot of this that we're going to have to, well, I don't even want to look through it. I just grab the bag and throw it off the side of the road. We don't need it. But there's a lot of deep baggage attached when you get outside of your own responsibility to assert your law. You think it's tough when you have to learn the law enough to protect your property. Wait till you hand your representation over to someone else who doesn't have that appreciation for your property, who is either making money from you because he gets advantage and you want to throw your money instead of your time, which is not the best way you spend your money, or you hand it over to someone else who claims to have your best interest involved when, in fact, the law I read tells me that they don't. Their organizations tell me that they don't. Why are you going to be sandwiched between the BLM and Emerald Planet of all things and expect to get out of that in partnership your rights? It is beyond me. That's just looking at their partnership list, knowing that partnershiping is part of the ADR felony process. And if you didn't know at all what I'm talking about, that's our problem. It's not that it's not knowable, and it's not that you can't know it. It's that that's what you need to know to find out how to identify these people, innocent as it might be, for going down the wrong track, wasting our time. that I look at this thing in our experience and I say, we can do much, much better on our own and working amongst each other that are working on our own. And I hope you agree. I hope you stop the wiggling and the wriggling. Go read the law that I'm asking you to read to bring yourself up to speed. You'll see what I'm talking about. Understand and go over to NEPA. You understand that's the standard that you are hearing when we talk about 43 USC 1712, which is coordination. And that's what imposes upon this whole condition, the NEPA, to that these major federal actions don't interfere with local people and the obligations of Congress. I talked all about this stuff yesterday at the seminar. And sadly, there was only a handful of people that were there. And sadly, there was the industry's being beat down. It wasn't a well-attended show. But everybody, after I talked to the seminar, talking through different vendors, they were all saying they were giving me problems. I said, well, I was just talking about that. We could solve that if these miners, these grantees, these prospectors knew what the law was. The answer is in 2 or 3 sentences. This is not that hard when you understand what it is. You don't have to be a brain. The miners made this law. Whatever our intelligence was, and I think it's a lot higher than we give ourselves credit for. We just want to go to work as our problem. We don't want to deal with this stuff. We're not in that day anymore right now. We have to fix some things. But it's not going to be going to happen giving it over to any other agency like an agency, literally. The MMAC, the advisory councils, or any other all your mining associations are great, but they're not governments. They're not going to be any better than an advisory issue, and they're a legal entity under the state laws where a mining district isn't. And you can't force mining districts. They have to start up on their own. And even the districts didn't have everybody participating. So you can't speak for those interests. See, it always is the bottom line. Nobody can oppress the property owner. And that's what happens when you get in these associations that think that they know what's going on, or you give to them that they think that they're the bee's knees in mining law knowledge or any law knowledge. I'm finding it doesn't exist, and I'm just speaking for myself and confidence of myself and my work to not fool myself. And I think based on what our experience is and our what the product finish of what we do, what the end result is of our actions, are a lot more proof than listening to anybody's opinion anywhere. So I think that's enough said here today. I went a whole lot longer. I usually do. Please, for all y'all, read the FACA Act and then conform, and then go to the website that they have over there. And you'll see this act laid out right for the miners. I don't believe that any miner understands that. I believe actually a couple of miners might have been duped because, we just want the gangrene off our back. And so we think if we make a deal with them, well, will you give me your seal of approval so you don't beat up on me? We'd like, we just want to get along so we get back to work. That is as innocent as it took for a group of people to learn they could come in and take advantage. And I think that's what happened. And they take the miners' good nature and generous nature and the need just to want to get back to work, and all the appropriators, and they exploit that. And for me, I'm not going to let that. I saw that early on. I'm not going to let it happen. It's not going to happen around anybody that I know, and it's not going to happen to people that I don't even know. I want you to know that. I know the district stepped up. Boy, I was really thrilled to see that. You don't know what you don't know about how integrated things are when we're all kind of in disparate places and doing our own thing. But when we come together, we sure came together on this pretty well, and I was really, really pleased to see it. And I think we have an authoritative statement. This is going to be, as I said, posted on the website, and you can eventually read it for yourself. And then do go back and prove out what we've ordered be so. That we will not capitulate to this sort of it's literally a plunder of property rights, a plunder of your power. And I want to make sure you do your decision. You can join up with the mining district or not. You can join up with, tie in and help participate. That's how you join in, is by participating with what Georgetown Mining District does, or create your own real one. And you can take our lead and go down to Tombstone, talk to them, to create a real one that works on today's problems, not the past. Forget about working on the past, which was the main secret here to find out. You're not going to create a district that works on the past. That's not where the threat is. The states really did take a good job at handling all the requirements for us on our muniment. That's all the regulation was ever after, the muniment. That's why the Reinhardt decision down in California is absolutely wrong. It included, the appellate court changed and expanded what the regulation clause is in the mining law. So, I think that's enough right now. We'll get on to the news I have, so-called the tabs. It keeps showing us things are going on that we need to pay attention to. It's a bigger, comprehensive, it's a global problem. That's no joke. This cooperative garbage, this collaborative stuff, it's ADR-based strategies. This is all international, folks. That's all I can tell you. It's all international. When you read enough and know enough, you'll know that. And now we are talking to the choir. And you will probably, hopefully, that's why I say, once you see enough, just pick the thing that you think is, pick the wrong you find needs to be righted and right it. And so the district decided that was a big enough wrong when it caught fire, needed to be righted. I hope we contribute to a better day and a more focused and more appropriately focused energy to throw off what oppresses us. Study finds there are too many studies. How's that, folks? We finding out we just got information data overload in this silent war that we're again. In this weekend war report, continuing now since NDAA, the Supreme Court so-called, walks away from its post to check the constitutionality of indefinite detention. And you see the horror that has been rolling out. The people just underneath the skin of everybody. No one even sees what's going on. I was ahead of that 3 or 4 months to tell you, watch out. I identified the part of the memo that denounced even international law. Wow. No borders, no rules, no laws, no nothing. And your government, so-called, your United States government, is telling you that. Yeah, we study and study and study, and we don't we get overwhelmed by this data. The silent war against you is this data war against you. And you get plugged in by all the technology they give you and don't pay attention to the parts that hurt you. And as you see over and over, they're using it against us now. It's now obvious. They're admitting it. That I tell you that these studies, these science-based studies that these collaborative processes are based on are fraud. They're all studies on studies on studies. So here comes, I thought this was a fun one. Since we're all dealing in study land, it's not science-based, it's all studies on studies. But there's too many studies, the study says. A growing number of scientific studies is making it harder for researchers to keep track of all their content. And maybe interject here, remember, and the industry, the scientific study industry in China that just has the printing presses running like the United States has dollar bills coming flying out. It's endless. Thousands and thousands of studies are wrong, and these scientists pick up the studies on studies and they use them as fact. And I've told you that's Scientology. This is where science becomes the new religion. It is the real religion. It's the ideology. It underpins what you think science-based. You think it's authoritative. That's just an arrogance. Because science is people going out doing measurements, and then based on measurements and a hypothesis, and based on measurements, they come up with what they think the reality is. It's always an ongoing question. That's our so-called science. Now, we've done pretty good. We've identified the reality as well as we can, that we function pretty well in it, in the technology and science and applications in engineering beyond ourselves. But we have in us this deficit, this defect. And so we have a whole bunch of studies that are just a bunch of nonsense. We got that coming out of China. I'm sure they're coming out of everywhere. And that becomes information overload. That's absolutely beyond. That not even science can use anymore. And I've told you, science now has to be prostrate before the truth. And you are now able to be as scientific as any other of these, Grimner, mad scientists. It's scienceology. It's the study of what we think we know. And that's the good one, because what they've done is they've created fraud to look like science, as we found in our coordination research for the sage grouse. We got the emails, and thank you to a Colorado group, county, that got those emails that we found, that we pulled on over and said, hey, these scientists, the real scientists, don't want to sign on to this, and the BLM said, that's okay, we'll just fabricate it anyway. There's no sage grouse problem, notwithstanding it really can't be used against anybody. This is one of those plunders. This is what MMAC would have 1/15th voice against. Oh, also, I'll get back quickly. Those RACs, those RACs, those Resource Advisory Councils, I learned, this FACA was instructive to me. I learned a whole bunch. These local county RACs that they build, that they talk to you is trying to help the county in coordination, they're not. They're cooperation. You can't even use those, actually. So this is how they deceive us. We just don't realize it. As soon as I read it, I could see exactly. I see the pictures painted for me. It's laid out in the law, folks. As much as we want to deny some of the government, I think we're just denying the corrupt part of it. I think if I keep telling you, don't throw some of this out so fast, because it's laid out. Like the law of the land is really clear. If we go ahead and embrace that, I think we'll be way and far and ahead of these people to really bring us back into some sense of who we used to be and are and where we were going, and we'll have a better chance to get there, and we won't be needing to rely on someone else's studies, because now it's out. There's just too many studies, folks. We have big data overload already, and we haven't even got started. So I won't talk anymore. The point is that we are into this system, and we are going to have to find ways to withdraw it. And I'm able to see a distinction that we can make to be that outcast, if I can say it that way. We're in law, we're out legal, but when we go out legal, we're outcast of the legal. We're not in that legalized society, and it can't deal with us. What we found in our lawsuit. See, the courts have been slowly and quietly modified. That we found that the Article 3 courts don't actually exist in the first instance. And they may not exist at all, but we're going to go ahead and give one credit, because it didn't say it wasn't, and it didn't need to. It answered the law. So we're going to say that's the law, and we're going to go ahead and give its promotion credit. But we didn't find in the first instance an Article 3 court is available in this current system. It's been stealthily removed. They're altering your law right before your face, right in front of your face, and you don't know it. And we don't know it. All of us don't know it until we have to roll up our sleeves and deal with it. That's why I said the more of you that roll up your sleeves and deal with it, you're going to see it's not just conjecture, it's not just your opinion, and it's just not something to flippantly say. You'll see that you remove the transparency, you remove the camouflage when you read the law. That's what allows me to see right through these people. And until you can see them, you can't even begin to address that or fight it, if you're going to fight it, or maybe not fight it. I kind of like the Aikido, use their momentum against them and then keep moving. Do as little interaction as possible and without as little effort as possible, right? Although, when I told you I'm talking 10 years behind, I've been 10 years, folks. You have to understand that. For as much as we're fighting for the right to go do something, it's sucking up my life. And anybody else who does this is not so glamorous. It's not a job. You don't get paid for it. The stars are just right to allow me to do this, and I'm very grateful to be able to. And so I dedicate myself to it. But this is a dedication. My life is going away, because these oppressors are here to take over your country. And I felt that I liked where we were going, and I want to see if we can get that back. I don't know about the rest of you. I hope you feel that way. Otherwise, I'm wasting my breath. We have things that are our examples that are good, and there are things that have come on to take and steal those away. We have to throw those off. That's just the occupation. And we don't need their studies. Their studies are fraudulent. The scientists that are real scientists, is just the same thing as climate change. They don't want to speak if they got a job, because they'll be kicked out. They'll be claimed to be the heretics in the religion, see? That's why I talk about Al Gorpocryphal. He's a priest of a new religion, of an altered type of new religion, an altered type of science. It's all constrained to control your mind and control your existence, and to monitor it and feed it to that big data center in the sky, essentially. Which NSA is fulfilling, really. It's kind of like you're watching them change. The NSA is actually becoming this thing that is the technocracy that we were. So I was just actually looking at something. This technocracy we heard in the 30s. I've talked about this before, but I don't get other people talk about it more in depth. But I don't know. To me, okay, I know that's happening. Let's address it. Let's not stop talking about it. Is my view. And with that, I'll move on. Russian treaty with South Ossetia breaks international law, says NATO. Well, I just said the United States just disavowed and denounced in their memo allowing for indefinite detention. They denounced all of international law. What's NATO's excuse and complaint? That Russia treaty breaks. So who's they to get involved with somebody else's agreements? NATO sounds like this MMAC now. Get your nose out of here. Quit being in here. But here we are. We're going to stick our nose in some place that we don't even do ourselves as an establishment. NATO to the United States, the European powers. Blame Russia for making its life more acceptable in the world in light of NATO going and beating and killing everybody. This is nonsense. And crickets, folks. I still am a believer that we can make our voice, the din that changes from crickets to the lions that are going to come up and chew all those people down, just eat them up. The sheep, we become, folks, the little character, what, underdog? Maybe it's time we grow up and we become underwolf. Those black sheep looking like sheep in the herd this year of the sheep. We call underwolf. I need someone who can draw that stuff up. You always get these ideas. I think they're kind of funny to me. Underwolf. Are we going to stand up and be that? Are we going to be the thing they said that they're afeared of? The lone wolves, folks. They're terrified of this. They're terrified about it because it works a little different. The wolves aren't going to eat the sheep. The wolves are going to make more underwolves. And then they're going to step up. And they're going to go after these people that do this incomprehensible stupidity in the world, advancing this agenda, which is total control, total input and output, like you saw, the digital, the product, the demand. It was always, you heard William Roberts talking about the demand. I mean, this is what, it's input and demand. It's input and demand. It's just like a big system. Someone's got to, they're the bean counters. They just want to keep their fingers in and keep track of it all. Russia treaty with South Ossetia breaks international law. Well, the United States just denounced completely international law. What is NATO worried about it for? Noam Chomsky, a sledgehammer worldview. He wrote an interesting article. The front page of the New York Times on June 26th featured a photo of a woman mourning a murdered Iraqi. He is one of the innumerable victims of the IS campaign, in which the Iraqi Iraqi army, armed and trained by the United States for many years, had quickly melted away, abandoning much of Iraq to a few thousand militants, hardly a new experience in imperial history. Now, I understand Noam Chomsky has a pretty extreme view. I don't really pay attention to all that stuff. Like I said, if somebody's speaking a truth, I'll go with that. I don't have to embrace their worldview. Some of this stuff these isms I don't tie into either, because it's going elsewhere. And it'll be another ism, and that's the problem. We got to stop the isms and live in what is and foundation. And the United States, in its land and land laws, and one time the courts that supported the land law, and this is what's changing too. This is why I say we're right at that cusp, folks. We have the chance to bring it back from the brink. We really do have a chance to pull it from the stinking abyss. But Noam Chomsky, I guess, can go off into what you might perceive to be another ism and supported by it. But he's making very clear truths here that I started to read, and I went through and read it, and I thought this is something you want to find out and give yourself a more comprehensive view to look at the things more truthfully. I don't have a problem with looking at everybody's views. I don't have to accept any of it, but I certainly have always been one to want to hear it. Right above the picture of the newspaper's famous motto, all the news that's fit to print, there is a crucial omission. The front page should display the words of the Nuremberg judgment of a prominent Nazi, words that must be repeated until they penetrate general conscience. Aggression is, quote, the supreme international crime, differing only from other war crimes in that it contains within itself the accumulated evil of the whole. Now, I don't want to read. I wanted to convey this idea. He's promoting it. He kind of focuses on Nazis. You see the taint on the Nazi side, but the point is that we talk about international law. We talk about what's supposed to be going on, and all of this is window dressing for us. When you see these mottos that are up there, and he's right, that we should look at that. We should be enforcing that, and we're not. That we're not is the problem. Now what are we going to do about it? Do we have to talk about it more? I don't think so. I just think we're going to have to get to a better day, and we're going to have to put it there. Because these people that are doing this nonsense statements like NATO and the United States and even Russia for its own propaganda has to stop. It just has to stop. Now, how do we see? This is the other thing. How do we deal with this? Well, we may not be able to deal with the international side. That may not be. Certainly, I mean, some of you might. I don't know. I don't know what your connections are, but most of us are tangible into our locale. That's why we have to be empowered, because I do believe it's a ripple effect. When the interim chairman got on the conference call, he's talking all over the country. He was shocked to hear how widespread this MMAC thing has gotten. And he was talking to literally people all over the country just on one conference call. That's the power of the truth. It can get out quick. It ripples out. I found out. I only had a small handful of people that were in the seminar, because there wasn't that much of a turnout either. Last year, I filled up the little seminar room and out the door. But after I was being told that lots of people are talking about what I was talking about, and so I didn't realize that. So this is a ripple effect. You can be the difference. And I think if you just bring up again the law, the fact, and have proof for those that are kind of don't believe it, or that are really afraid to see the truth, you have a big force and effect. Why I think telling people like Congress and Senate, I think it hits their conscience. I really do. Unless they're completely total evil, and then nothing will help. Those are the people just get out. You just work to get them out, or have somebody get out. But Noam Chomsky makes it, I think, a very interesting points here. I'd like you to know about them. I think that they form up the basis from which you can come and see more of the hypocrisy you already know exists, but maybe in more articulate ways. I'm not necessarily so articulate. I'm certainly not so formal. As I think of William Roberts, he had his encyclopedias, he had his resource library. I don't have any of that, so I got to come out of my mind of what I've researched over 30 years. So it's not so formal. You're actually looking into my scattered thoughts at some point. It just doesn't come that organized. So, and that's okay. I think until I'm told different, I try to find better ways to communicate things, and I keep working it that way. And you all keep listening, and that's cool. I just again hope to have you research enough to become active in doing things. And I'm seeing that when we do it in the right way, you may not understand the mining district, it may not hit you, but what I'm doing in the mining district about coordination is only public comment stuff, and that is something you can do, and that's something you can do with your local government, and you can really stop a lot of this. And that's not even talking about maybe initiative, referendum, or laws that you could create to counter this nonsense, let alone a lawsuit like we did that hits the heart of the beast. And well, now again, there's some formalities that have to be done, and they got interrupted last month because of all this other stuff that came in the way. But you can do it too. It's not, don't feel you can't. If you feel uncertain, all it's telling you is that you need to learn a little bit more. Maybe you need to ask someone a better question, or ask a question and let them tell you maybe a better question. Be open to that too. Now, as we hear about NATO and all, talking about being, changing, being a violation of international law and all, again, the truth can't hold off too far. Internet's a wonderful thing. The technology on our side works good as well. It's not always against us. I'm not against technologies, and I'm not against science. So let's get that clear. I've talked about that. I'm against this fraud. The ones that purport to be the scienceologists instead of the scientists, the ones that are honest enough to be inquirers, and really good ones too. I just can't tell you how in awe of a real good scientist I am, and I think all are at some point. That's just looking at someone that's really pushed his or her talent to the ultimate and does right where he or her needs to do that. And I guess I'm asking partly for us to do that in ourselves as well, that aren't quite fulfilling what I think we need to do in the time we're given to do it. This is a real opportunity time. These interesting times we live in. U.S. forces caught red-handed in Syria. I need to read more, folks. I mean, come on. Evidence about the presence of U.S. Special Forces in Syria town of Ain al-Arab, a.k.a. Kobani, emerged. troops are guiding U.S. airstrikes and part of the United States support for Kurdish separatist group PYD and long-established plan to establish a Kurdish corridor. Well, that's not all it's doing over there, folks, but, we kind of heard that already in the news. They said, well, these ISIS are going to be able to direct fire. That was to cover for our troops inside who are actually directing the fire. Do you think that they're going to give a bunch of these lunatics all this technology, actually? I hope you all picked that up before when I reported on it. Like I said, I don't talk, I don't say everything that's in my mind. That just doesn't come to me in the moment that we're talking, but there all it was. And here now, a few weeks later, we get the proof. United States Special Forces has been invaded the territory of Syria. I guess that's not an international breach, folks. It's not an international war crime, I guess, folks. But there's other opinions out there in the world, and interestingly, reinvestigation of 9/11 campaign gains world momentum. Italy Supreme Court submits United States a 9/11 crimes against humanity to the International Criminal Tribunal. I guess maybe they're going to have to dust off that little Nuremberg plaque with that phrase. Don't you think, folks? Do I have to read more about this? I'm just giving you some of this stuff. I'll be running out of time anyway. Understand that there's other people now looking in, governments now looking in and saying, hey, the emperor wears no clothes here. Quit causing trouble on your people and for the rest of the world. You're bringing us into disrepute ourselves. I mean, at some point, these people, everyone has to stand up and say, okay, you've embarrassed me enough. And go look at the word what embarrassment means. It doesn't mean the normal, what you think it is. It doesn't put it's not something that puts red marks on your cheeks. International embarrassment. This is a serious thing. Now that we're finally standing up, we have to stand up for ourselves to do this. Stop this embarrassment that you're causing on us. See, that's why I said it. You're causing on us. It's not something we did, but we're allowing it, and that makes us look bad because we are the people here and everywhere are the ones that ultimately are responsible. So think about that for 9/11 and all that's been said. And I don't get too much behind it. I guess maybe I don't have quite a listenership on that point because I just don't talk too much about it. I've talked a little bit about it. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Well, maybe we'll see. Maybe we'll see. Italy stands up and says, listen, it makes no sense here. We think you made criminal crimes against humanity. We want you to stand trial. And this you'll start to see the interesting conundrum between what sovereignty is and will admit and what it won't. When they say no. And there goes your justice. There goes your Nuremberg trials, and then you'll see that those whole trials were set up as well. And they used those to get rid of a few people. And they exonerated a couple as well in some certain ways. So they just want to give you a show. It's all window dressing. United States intel scraps Iran and Hezbollah from terrorist threats list. Well, that's interesting. Did you hear about that, folks? The United States National Intelligence has removed Iran and Lebanese resistance movement Hezbollah from its list of terrorist threats. Same week that Italy says you've committed crimes against humanity in 9/11. United States. The wraps are off, folks. The emperor wears no clothes, and we the people are crickets, and we need to stop that. United States Director of National Intelligence James Clapper scrapped Iran and Hezbollah from the list in an annual report delivered to the United States Senate, citing their efforts in fighting terrorists, including the ISIS people, and Takfiri group. The unclassified version of the report titled World Threat Assessment and United States Intelligence Community, which was released February 26, 2015, noted Iran's efforts to battle extremists, including those of the they're making it different now. It's ISIS terrorists, the ones that we created, who were perceived to constitute the greatest terrorist threat to American interests worldwide. From where, folks? 9/11? The same crimes against humanity caused by the United States itself? So now, what's the point then? If Iran, which is the next target for the United States, is now not a terrorist, that's just dropping them as if they're going to drop their guard, and Hezbollah aren't. What's the point now? And when you only got the redacted version, who else did they drop from that list? To show you this whole thing has been fabricated by the United States, and it was all made to allow governments who are conducive to the United States and in some inferior position to the United States to come after the people themselves. which you've seen over and over in the method I explained when I decided to bring it out in Australia. I said, watch, you're going to see here, this is to get Australians to agree to get their soldiers over there back in the Middle East, and you saw it happen. And then Hebdo, I said, watch, you're going to get France people they're going to get involved with the war in Africa a lot better. They're going to get that support from the crowd. They're going to destroy any objection or most objection. They're going to be able to turn the tide on those they call everybody a heretic, national security risk if you come against the state's view. And it happened, folks. It's predictable now. One thing that didn't get away from some people, and I wanted to show this instead of all that, the people have to say, and even though I read the Constitution and it seems to be a little bit long, and I thought I saw some big holes for the Bar Association to sneak back in and the bankers to eventually come back in later on in their constitution. They're doing so pretty good in Iceland. Iceland convicts bad bankers and says other nations can act. So there it is, the example, folks, I keep talking about. We are our own example. We just have to keep doing what we should be doing, find the principles that work and stick to them like glue, like our life, our existence depends on it. Iceland's Supreme Court has upheld the convictions of market manipulation for four former executives of the failed Kaupthing Bank in a landmark case that the country's special prosecutors said showed it was possible to crack down on fraudulent bankers. Shame on the United States. How's that? Shameful what we allow. Why are other people showing us how to enforce law? Well, how far have we fallen? The charts are everywhere to show how far we've fallen, and I hear crickets talking about France and what they were going to bring in based on Hebdo. It was a plan, folks. We saw immediately they got the support from the people to make war. Okay, that was done, and now I also said that they're going to use this as an encroachment to increase security. Sure enough, France unveils snooping bill in the wake of Paris attacks, modeled after who, folks, but the United States. They're all over us as the people. United Kingdom admits intelligence services allowed to break into any system anywhere for any reason. Continuing this big data, we're going to monitor the world. We're going to control everything that happens in the world, whether you pick it up or whether you buy it or sell it. We're going to have it all controlled, and we're going to tax you at every point. And because you're doing that, you're going to be considered to be a threat to the environment that allows it. So we're going to tax you some more. If you didn't hear, that's carbon tax. All based on a fraud, on people who believe that they have the technical and scientific expertise over you, who, when you look at them, they have nothing. So France unveils a snooping bill, and then UK says we can go anywhere we want in your stuff. Get in your stuff if they're not already there. So it's what are we going to do here, folks? We're going to stay crickets. That's what we're going to be getting. We're going to have whatever the world is. That happens when it's on a nice summer night when all you're doing laying back and you're hearing the crickets go on. So the pleasure, the bliss of ignorance, I suppose. Do you agree with that or not? If you don't, you're really going to have to decide what you can do in your little part. Again, I don't know. I don't even see a finish to what I'm doing. It's been 10 years. I don't know if I see a finish. Folks, I don't know if you appreciate it. I'm talking 10 years. I've almost wore out a cushion sitting on it, working at this over day by day by day, hours after hours after hours. I'm in a place and able to do that. Now, not everybody can. The point is, this is the momentum that's built up against us, that I'm asking just at any other hand that can come at any amount of time to hold their part on the rope, please do. Because they're telling us it's global. This whole construct is global. And they're using technology to do it to us. And they're altering what we have thought up until now was what we thought was these things in the world, like science or whatever, all these things. Your society, your politics, on and on and on. All this stuff is being transformed, as I was seeing. I keep highlighting this transform. Well, someone else has been doing the study a lot better than me. He found all the same stuff. So I feel pretty good that I honestly look at stuff. I'm able to. And I'm able to know that when I didn't, and keep going until I figured out at least most of it. And continually check that I continually was doing that right. This is a little bit of the work as well. Keep checking yourself. as we are oppressed. I told you this is a financial construct. We could prove it through Title 50. That's the military control of your life, given exceptions to the government to beat you up and test on you and inject you and do whatever you want, all supporting an economic construct. Which you look at Title 50 Appendix, you're going to be directed to Title 1295A. That is your fiscal structure, your financial system. This whole thing is a financial control, and it's global. World Bank gets you over. See, when you get to the Fed, you get over to the World Bank. That's the control, the global control structure. It's all financial. They know that's your currency, that's your energy. That's the energy that they're controlling in this silent weapon, silent war thing, quiet wars. It's the currency. The current is the electrical. If you electrical current, it's monetary current. Your money, your currency. We can add all these words. Currency is in the Admiralty. Yeah, okay, we can go all that. Doesn't matter. You have to see it, and you have to figure out how to stop it. That means get out of it. And here's another reason why. Justice Department rolls out, and to fortify that this is an economic construct that they're going to control in the future, and to a very high degree, Justice Department now rolls out an early form of capital controls in America from Zero Hedge. Something stunning took place earlier this week, and it quietly snuck by, unnoticed by anyone, as to all-important FOMC meeting was looming. That something something could have been taken straight out of the playbook of either Cyprus or Greece or the USSR evil empire, or all three. This is how the WSJ explained it. The United States Justice Department's criminal head said banks may need to go beyond filing suspicious activity reports when they encounter a risky customer. The vast majority of financial institutions file suspicious activity reports when they suspect that an account is connected with nefarious activity. Said Assistant Attorney, folks, nefarious. You're considered an enemy combatant. How is anything you do not nefarious to these people? Now, if you understand what happened in the NDAA problem, as Assistant Attorney, or actually Patriot Act in the beginning, because this is probably Section 326 out of the Patriot Act speaking to us again from the grave it should have been put in, said Assistant Attorney General Leslie Caldwell in a Monday speech, according to prepared remarks. But in appropriate cases, we encourage those institutions to consider whether to take more action, specifically to alert law enforcement authorities about the problem. The remarks indicate the banks may be expected to do more than just filing SARs, and responsibility that itself can be expensive and time-consuming. Folks, they went to gobzillions. It doesn't matter. If these people are probably a lot smarter. They're probably getting paid by the government underneath the APA when they have to do a regulation that they have to do that costs them money. They get it from the government. And when we went to gobzillion, there's enough money to pay for all this skullduggery and spying. So banks already, they're getting paid for all this. Don't worry about it. Some banks already have close relationships with the law enforcement, you think, said Kevin Rosenberg, chairman of Goldberg, Lowenstein, and Weather Wax LLP's Government Investigations and White Collar Litigation Group. Ms. Caldwell's remarks speak to moving forward. Moving forward is what they're doing. Progress. If you look at the word progress and see progressive, you see where we're going. In a more collaborative way. What did I just say is the destruction of this nation, but the collaboration process. You're inside a one-direction agency at the pleasure of that agency, only giving advice if they'll listen. How's that? This collaborative process moving forward. This is what MMAC is. Different subject matter, but same thing, same plunder. A tip-off from a bank about the suspicious customer could lead law enforcement to seize funds or start an investigation. This is kind of like what they do in Europe already. You're guilty until the judge finds you innocent. So if you Americans think that this is the transformation that's going on through this moving beyond the isms into the final ism, if I can put it that way, or maybe into the ick, the stick, anyway. Justice Department rolls out, it formed better in my mind than it came out of my mouth, excuse me, and apologize for that. Justice Department rolls out early form of capital controls. Imagine going to the bank to withdraw some cash. Having some cash on hand is always a prudent strategy, and especially today when more and more bank deposits are creeping into negative territory, meaning that you have to pay the banks for the privilege they gamble with your money. It's not your money, folks. I've already proven that. Neither is your safe deposit box not yours. It's their money, and they're going to tell you what they can do with it. Here's the proof. You tell the teller you'd like to withdraw $5,000 from your account. She hesitates nervously and wants to know why. You try politely to let her know that that's none of the bank's business. It's your money. The teller disappears for a few minutes, leaving you waiting. When she returns, she tells you that you can collect your money in a few days. Now, if you have to wait a few days, is that your money, first of all? Oh boy, we got a problem, but here's your future, as they don't have it on hand at the moment. What kind of a crime would that be if it was actually your money? Slightly irritated because of the inconvenience. Just slightly, folks. This is where we got. We're so insensitized. We're going to be slightly irritated and let them do that. And I'll tell you, that's all you're going to do is what you're told here. You head home. And you did that to yourself, didn't you? You understand the answer. I almost don't want to read anymore because we know the answer to this. But as you pull up into your driveway, later there's an unexpected surprise waiting for you. 2 police officers would like to have a word with you about your intended withdrawal earlier. If this sounds far-fetched, think again, because it could be very well become the reality of the land of the free, and the Justice Department gets its way. Well, I've told you it's the land of the fee, the home of the slave, and I'm going to tell you what the word home means by adding the word to it that they should be doing. It's the land of the tax home. See? It's a tax home of the slave. Land of the fee and tax home of the slave. So they didn't let you know that they changed the word home on you. It's not your hearth. It's not that fire, and it's not that rocking chair. Whether or not there's a rocket attached to it. And as I say that, I don't say it much, but Grammy Mary's on RLM and WT, worldtruth.org, periodically during the week. I don't really have time to keep track. I wish I did, but I don't. I understand she's a cut-up. You can go have a lot of fun on her show that I don't do. I wish I could. To bring what to me is, I mean, I'm so ingrained in all this thing that was such a little, to me, it has come as a war, and I haven't been able to divorce that. But here the land of the free, folks. I don't know what it's going to take, why that even used. This is the land of the fee, home of the tax home of the slave. And until you figure out how to off that and then try to protect yourself, we're going to be in a lot of trouble over this. Earlier this week, the senior official from Justice Department spoke to a group of bankers about the need for them to rat out their customers to the police. Now, do you want to be involved with companies that think you're a rat? What a lot of people don't realize is that banks are already unpaid government spies. Well, I don't believe that. I think behind the scenes that they can ask, and there's the APA, the Administrative Procedure Act, says they can get paid for implementation of regulations that are imposed upon them. And it's partly why they probably can be gone after criminally if they don't. Federal regulators in the land of the fee, tax home of the slave, required banks to file suspicious activity reports, or SARs, on their customers, and it's not optional. Banks have minimum quotas of SARs that need to fill out and submit to the federal government. If they don't fill enough SARs, they can be fined. They can lose their banking charter, and yes, banking executives and directors can even be imprisoned for noncompliance. This is the nature of the financial system in the land of the fee, tax home of the slave. This is the system, the economic system I've been telling you for years that underpins the military's ability to beat you down and as explained through Title 50, making you an enemy combatant way back to 1917, the Enemy Training with the Enemies Act, as modified in the 1930s by the cripple one that crippled all of us, crippled America, to remove the exception to citizens of the United States by replacing them with 4 asterisks in the law, making you believe that part that they omitted was still there. These people are so slick. When I saw that, I really laughed. And this is after I had read Protocols of the Elders of Zion and realized I was dupable. And we had been. Chances are your banker has filed one about you. They submitted 1.6 million SARs in 2013 alone, but now the Justice Department is saying the SARs aren't enough. Now whenever banks suspect something suspicious, in quotes, suspicious, make it up, is going on, They want them to pick up the phone and call the cops. Quote, we encourage those institutions to encourage folks. We just encourage them, those institutions, to consider whether to make more action, specifically to alert law enforcement authorities about the problem, who may be able to seize the funds, initiate an investigation, or take other proactive steps. So what exactly constitutes suspicious activity? Basically anything. According to the handbook of the Federal Financial Institutional Examination Council, there's another council, folks. Banks are required to file a SAR with respect to, quote, transactions conducted or attempted by, at, or through the bank or an affiliate and aggregating $5,000 or more. It's utterly obscene. According to the Justice Department, going to the bank and withdrawing $5,000 should potentially prompt a banker to rat you out to the police. What do you think, folks? It's not your money anyway. They're going to rat you out for $5,000. You know the answer to that. If you're going to be in there, do less. But you know the target was $3,000. And so if you want to, the answer is, like I wanted to stop earlier because to me, the answer is you can't be in the system, right? I've said this over and over and over. Find alternative systems. Go to actual physical coin. I don't know. That starts to pull you out of the system because they want to go to the digital war against you. And this just starts showing you, when you start to see what that's doing, you'll also start to see how you're extricating yourself just by the fact that you withdraw, and how, if you know what you're looking at, how you can say, wait a minute now, you're making up stuff about me. I'm not actually in that state. You can't do this. You don't have jurisdiction, and you can't force it on me. And if you know about how your state went to a corporate status back in the 50s, you can say, listen, let me show me that application that agreed. See, your application that you agreed is actually a federal one. It's that signature card you sign. So continue in this system, digital data. They want to keep monitoring more data on you, check you out, down to smaller and smaller increments. You see, the resolution of the data coming in now is getting more and more and more, and they're apparently able to keep up with that acquisition of information. And they're making controls that you will not move very far. Now, you consider this, folks, in states like Oregon that just went into the vehicle mileage tax. You may not get home. On the way there, they'll have pulled you over and done whatever they wanted to. But this is on the thing. This is they're rolling out. This is the seed, folks. This is the seed that people are going to be used to accept, and this is the notice to you to start to respond, either to en masse pull out your stuff, or start to do engagements and say, hey, this is a really nonsense. This is all done because it's a fraud that you're perpetrating, as now I think maybe Italy may have identified for itself to advance war crimes, crimes against humanity to the World Court against the United States itself, which was the cause for what we're now suffering, and any other country that does this will suffer. Colossal defeat for Obama as Australia joins China's regional bank. The word regional is a part of this global thing as well. That's why I choked a bit. I said a regional in our notice. I read it, well, that's regional, but that's just kind of saying what they are. It's not our own. Regional is not your lawful land from which you are working. A regional is a new veneer of an area. So regional is the global governance condition, and you hear it here, that the regional banks is what they're part of. China's in this. Russia's in it too. I told you. They're making the BRICS to be they needed a duality, so there's always going to be a fight, but they also needed to be able to transfer stuff. When you get two places to transfer money to, so you can make money in those transfers as well. But having attacked its closest ally, UK, for constant accommodation with China, we suspect President Obama will be greatly displeased at yet another close ally's decision to partner up with the Chinese-led Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. As the Australian reports, make no mistake, the decision by Australia's Abbott government to sign on negotiations to China, make no mistake, the decision by Australia's Abbott government to sign on for negotiations to join China's regional bank, foreshadowed by Tony Abbott at the weekend, represents a colossal defeat for the Obama administration's incompetent, distracted, ham-fisted diplomacy in Asia. I'm going to suggest that is propaganda that they want you to believe. This is a setup. They're doing this on purpose. It's not a defeat to Obama. He's bringing this along. What you're seeing is planned. Well, what was it? Roosevelt said that too. Anything you see is not by accident. It's planned. So believe that part. Don't listen to this nonsense. This is the other thing I wanted to point out about looking through the news. You really got to look through and see what's going on. Now, if this is planned, you have to understand all the fighting you see over it is all fabricated. This is to get you to think there's a battle going on, and so you don't look at certain things. And what happens is they do expand the control grid, and they get more nations involved in being underneath these restrictions that everyone just implements. Then we hear this thing, liberal Obama law professor, Obama EPA is burning the Constitution. To me, this is a seed drop. They aren't burning the Constitution. There's a lot that's not stopping them. There's a lot that we're not doing that we do in Jefferson Miner. We're turning around. They've actually I guess they got a monstrous influx of comments to the definition of waters of the United States. That they've now, here's the amoeba again. They changed the name of that rule. Now it's the Clean Water Rule. It's not even the definition name. So this is them. I mean, you can just see that now that they're changing the name. I know we got them. We put a big post in the front of in the way of the monstrous amoeba was coming, and it's just now going to roll around it. And so we are having a cause and effect. All of us that answered into that, and probably answered exactly right. And I told you our coordination response to this definition rule was that there was no jurisdiction for it, first of all, and then no jurisdiction to expand the jurisdiction beyond navigable waters, which were commerce waters, as Congress has already defined in the law. And these people find the Constitution to be an impediment. All right, this is a big problem. It's a trouble. The administrative procedures themselves are a nuisance. That they want to get rid of all that. So burning the Constitution, this is to me this is trying to plant the seed that that's actually happening, but it's not. It's being allowed to happen. EPA possesses only the authority granted to it by Congress. Its gambit here raises serious questions under the separation of powers because EPA is attempting to exercise lawmaking power that belongs to Congress and judicial power that belongs to the federal courts. But see, it's here because the courts are actually allowing it, and the court system is so dang slow. Instead of stopping it in the first instance, it lets the cancer metastasize. Secondly, the Congress could just shut off funding to all these things that our lawsuit identifies to be a plunder. And a lot of this would just shut down. Burning the Constitution should not become part of our national energy policy. All these words sound proper. But it's creating a faux argument, a false argument. Tribe made these statements as he testified before Congress on EPA's illegal plan to limit carbon dioxide. The hearing was on the EPA's Clean Power Plan that not only would raise energy prices through the roof, but could also lead to large numbers of deaths. How caring this guy is. Let me tell you something, that he's arguing at all about carbon dioxide and not testifying that this is a religion that has no place for government funds to be spent, then he's misdirecting the conversation. How do I know that? Because we sued it, and they agreed that that's what it was. And that's how they're not supposed to be doing it. And we sued, see, the EPA funds and grants money to the Solutions Network, which we sued through the governor, which is an agency of that governor's authority. And in an equitable relief, the agents and representatives and employees and contractors of the one you sued, employed to do the thing that's no good, are enjoined also. So if this statement before Congress wasn't that, this is a literal religion, the ideology of climate change. And, technocratically so, they use like Scientology to prove it. There's a bunch of lies and fraud on top of it. If he's not arguing that, he's arguing that the concept at all, just that it only exceeds a certain much, this guy is lying before Congress. And I really don't, I was going to read some more, but he's just got more statements. It doesn't matter to me. I mean, the guy's, no matter what he does, he's lying. And it's being accepted by Congress, and they don't shut him down. that means those congressmen are involved or ignorant. And they don't have the right to be ignorant when it comes to your property rights, their obligations. They have the duty to do the law. The fact that we found out that each not only do they have their duty to do the law, they are duty bound by the fact that they're in a department of the government to check another agency against encroachment. At the same week we get this, they're agreeing about the extension of carbon taxes and carbon ideas without condemning them outright. They're agreeing they exist, but only, to some of these certain levels. No, it's a plunder. Al Gore pops up again. Al Gore apocryphal, the green religious priest that promotes and becomes a documentarian about the climate change, the fraud that they study on study, the IPCC, everything I've talked about and can show. And if it's not me, and if I'm not the scientist enough, there's plenty of scientists that can show that this is a complete plunder. Al Gore, the guy who could he may have already done it, been a billionaire in green carbon taxation. He says we need, just like the professor in the university. Remember, they called everybody who didn't believe that man caused climate change, and we said, wait a minute, but there's a sun out there you should be paying attention to. Maybe that has a bit of a contribution, you think? We need to punish climate change deniers and put a price on carbon. That's stated from a guy who sits on the biggest pile of carbon, so-called, that there is. Although he himself is a pretty good sized sack of carbon if we were to reduce him down to his basic elements, which is probably the best thing for us to do. Punish climate change deniers. That sounds scientific, folks. Oh, well, religiously scientific, doesn't it? Burn the heretics, right? This is what this is. And we'd say, crickets. Can you even believe this guy was a vice president of a country? I mean, this is just complete nonsense, but this is what we allow. And we allow it despite even one scientific report that solar forcing of Holocene summer sea surface temperatures in the North Atlantic might have had something to do with things. And beyond man. Mounting evidence from proxy records, and proxy records are the ice core records, I think, is what they keep talking about. I've only found it's ice core records. And then, and I'll give you a link here too, it's pretty fascinating. The scientist now steps up and analyzes those proxy records and finds out there's a problem with them as well. And it's a fascinating problem. And, just appreciate there's people with this kind of mind that kind of look at this thing. It really brings clarity to a lot of things and really kind of puts a new model in your head, a model better than what the IPCC wants to throw down your neck, and Al Gore wants to call you a heretic over. Mounting evidence from proxy records suggests the variations in solar activity have played a significant role in triggering past climate changes. Because climate changes, folks. You don't deny that. Just in lots of places, just stick around 15 minutes. You'll get a new type. Or is that weather? Well, whether or not. However, the mechanisms for sun climate links remain a topic of debate. Folks, why? It's only because of this nonsense that Al Gore, the Scientologist, and not even that. He's just a snake oil salesman, has a noise over. That sun climate links can't. Anybody who would debate that, I think, should be put away for a while, or put in a place that he can't be heard or she can't be heard anymore. Let them go tend the daisies and figure out how their daisies grow or flowers grow, whatever. Here we present a high-resolution summer sea surface temperature record covering the past 9,300 years from a site located at a present-day boundary between polar and Atlantic surface water masses. The record is age-constrained via the identification of 15 independent data, tephra, markers, and terrestrial archives, circumventing marine reservoir age variability problems. Our results indicate a close link between solar activity and SST, or that's the sea surface temperature, And in the northern North Atlantic during the past 4,000 years, they suggest that the climate system in this area is more susceptible to the influence of solar variations during cool periods with less vigorous ocean circulation. Furthermore, the high-resolution SST data indicates that climate in the North Atlantic regions follows solar activity variations on multi-decadal to centennial time scales. So, folks, right there, they're not going to do it in 10 years, and they've been wrong for 20. But this Algorapocryphal, the priest of the green religion, wants to punish all climate deniers. Well, we got science that says, wait, hold it. It's not about money, folks, about carbon. Certainly not about that, but that's what Algorapocryphal, sitting on a pile of carbon, he's going to make a lot of money on. I think he's got a little bit of a conflict of interest. Notwithstanding, it ties into the global governance model, doesn't it? It's all models. It's all bean counters. These are all economic bean counters in the world. You just don't see it that way. And to prove it, I have a link for you. Climate scientist demolishes the global warming alarm. Now, that's a big, vast title, pretty promising. Well, I want you to get the link, and I want you to listen to the guy's video presentation. You better put your mind in this. You better be very careful to keep concentrating. He's got over an hour on this presentation he does. And he analyzes the proxy evidence problem. And he analyzes so he understands what that problem is, and then he reintroduces the corrections to explain what's going on, which I was just... I actually believe I kept up with it, and I actually believe I understand what I kept up with to understand that the proxy data is different, but it can be understood, and a system can be made, a mathematical discussion can be had to explain it all, to give us a better answer. And the better answer is there's a sun out there. The better answer is there's an atmosphere, there's a nature, there's cosmic rays, there's clouds, everything outside of man and beyond man. That man is so negligible a contribution, if any, that it cannot be placed into a model at this point, and the models can't be made big enough if they're not big enough to incorporate all these discrepancies in the measurements and the things that are being measured. And I just tell you, when I listen to the guy, I hear a real scientist behind this guy. I don't hear Algorapocryphal, where everybody has to be heretics. Everybody has to be punished. And I talked to you about the university system. See, I talked about the professors. I'm tying this all together. These are the adherents of this religion. They use collaborative processes, facilitated processes, mediation process. They get you to negotiate away all your property and rights and wealth and life. And if they can convince you, then they don't have to kill you. They don't have to punish you. But this is where we are in the world, and I hear crickets. It's not, your opinion is not what I'm talking about. That you agree is not what I'm talking about. We all can agree, but what are we going to do with what we agree about that's harmful to all of us? That we continue to allow this guy to even have a say. Al Gore says we have to be punished because you deny. Do I deny? Or is that just the name he's put on it? Is he the denier? Who's the denier? I think against science, he's pretty much denying science in favor of a religion, the green religion. I think we've gone through that over and over about how that eventuated itself, and it's provable. Guess what? Our lawsuit bring climate change up as a religion, and it said you're not supposed to put money into this system to promote these things around this religion called climate change, including carbon tax. And the state and the bar association and the political parties and the people that we sued and the legislative council that we sued didn't answer the suit. Now, you put yourself in the position of when you file a suit against somebody and they don't answer, what's the answer, folks? Well, besides you win, they agreed to what you said. So, this is what we said, that this climate change is a religion. Algorapocryphal is a priest. He's just spinning his religion to get you to believe, and guess what? There's a green pope to support him. Don't forget about that little angle. We are surrounded, infiltrated, and you know what? To me, it's become a target-rich environment. I would hope that you'd step up into that yourself, those of you that aren't quite sure. I was talking to some people this weekend that weren't quite sure about what they were doing, and I said, listen, it's not that hard. just go read a little bit more on the subject matter areas you're a little queasy about enforcing. And when you read some more, ask questions. Call me. Call some other people. If you're that far enough into it, but you're still not feeling sure yourself, you haven't quite found the right information and placed it in the right way. Because the more I read, the more I see, the more certain I am. So certain that I think we struck out with the lawsuit and we pretty much nailed it. Unheard of. I just can't tell you how unheard of these conditions are. So thank you very much.